They've been heavily dependent on coal, Vietnam and Indonesia in particular, and which are the larger nations in that whole group, have been heavily dependent on coal, and so we've desperately got to get them off that coal and give them some viable alternatives. They have some ambitions. Indonesia unveiled a plan to grow to around, I think it's something in the realm of 42% renewables or 44%. Vietnam's talking about 32% renewables by 2030. These are large expansions, also driven by finance from the US and Japan. They're anxious to support them in this. So there's a huge opportunity there. It's just a matter of we're not going to be alone in competing for this opportunity.
And so how do you see Australia's $2 billion finance facility being deployed?
Look, it's hard to know at this stage. There's got to be a lot more detail revealed, and I suspect it's really going to be up to the companies themselves to present good opportunities to the government, the Export Finance Corporation, to say, hey, I can make a go of this. I can do something successfully here in Asia where our Australian skill set is actually competitive against what these guys can do themselves and what other countries are looking to do. You know, China wants to get involved. The US wants to get involved. We're in a serious competition here.
There has been hope that Australia could export renewable power to Southeast Asia. Is that dream dead?
Look, we've had two absolutely mega projects, humongous projects proposed in northwest Western Australia in the Pilbara and also in the Northern Territory. These were staggering projects by a global scale to directly export electricity via power cable into Southeast Asia. Both of them had really strong, very detailed plans. They had very capable people sitting behind them. But unfortunately, it looks like neither of them have really been able to make it stack up on their initial plans. So something's happened there where they've looked at it, they've done the sums, and they've said, oh, we need to repivot and actually look more at some kind of domestic focus rather than, unfortunately, what we'd ideally like is exporting power into Southeast Asia.
And so do you expect that the Australian funding will most likely be aimed at large-scale wind and solar projects? And will it involve exports of Australian expertise or manufactured goods? Just how do you see the mix?
Yeah, I don't really see it being manufactured goods. I mean, Vietnam is getting really involved in manufacturing. For example, we import wind turbine towers from Vietnam, for example, even though we've been able to make them domestically. I just don't think we're really going to compete in that space. Chinese solar panel manufacturers are moving some of their production to Vietnam because they see that as a competitive place to do it. And we're going to sort of struggle in that space. Where I think we have an opportunity is in the services sector and also in education and training side of things. And the third component, which is a bit of a left field thing, is rooftop solar. You go to Indonesia and you look at these places, these far-flung islands all around the place, and they're not using rooftop solar, and you think this is madness. This is the perfect place to deploy this stuff. Australia is leading the globe in terms of deployment of rooftop solar and also doing it in sort of self-contained small household style packages. They're perfect for a range of Indonesian islands and also a number of areas in sort of some of the lesser developed areas of Southeast Asia, like for example, Myanmar. These places, that would be a fantastic sort of technology if we can come up with a way to roll that out cost effectively. That's where we've got a great opportunity, but also integrating these technologies into the grid and being able to manage a stable grid with very high ratios of wind and solar. That's something where we might be able to provide some smart expertise.
Well, you did mention cost effectively. This is a competitive space. The US and China is already in there. Can Australian business expect to receive a return on investment in Southeast Asia?
They've got to have a good, compelling product. They've really got to know what they're doing. They've got to have it absolutely nailed. You're dealing with people who are very smart themselves. These guys know what they're doing as well. And so it's going to be, it's a tough space. We have some capabilities, we have some really clever people with leading edge technology, leading edge capabilities in certain areas that potentially could compete if they're, you know, prepared to be adventurous and look at the opportunity, because that's where there's huge growth in electricity demand is going to occur there, and huge growth in emissions if we don't do something.
Do you see this announcement helping Australia accelerate its own progress down the path to transition?
Yeah, look, I think the most important thing, the government made a huge announcement a few months ago in November with the capacity investment scheme. That is a staggering scale announcement. That is really putting the rubber on the road with something meaningful and serious. That's where the government's, that's the most biggest focus. And I think part of the challenge is actually that the industry is going to be incredibly busy trying to decarbonise Australia's own electricity supply, let alone expanding overseas. But at the same time, you know, our rooftop solar sector is at a point now where it's kind of capped out in terms of annual sales. We're going to continue to add more and more solar, but it's not necessarily on an onward growth trajectory. And so some of those businesses might say, hey, we've done really well in Australia. Could we replicate this model in a cost-effective way that appeals to consumers in countries in Southeast Asia?
Tristan Edis, thank you.
Thank you.